Greetings. This is what I had come to mind for the title and some words and description like usual, but it's I brought up, it came to my mind, but then it was opportunity to bring up some verses that are blatantly in our face, like offensive if it's not understood and believed and truly understood and believed. Otherwise, it'll be like a stumbling block. And hopefully it's not a stumbling block for someone, but like instead of tripping over it, we just seek truth and get the answers and understanding and believe in what it means. Instead of tripping over and falling on our face and breaking our nose and then getting angry that somebody else put the rock there. It's got to be somebody else's fault. It's not our fault ever for being blind and tripping over rocks and cutting heads off in the night in the woods and shooting arrows and murdering people. Someone else made me do it. That's the carnal man. He blames everything on someone else, which is a sad state and pathetic, really, but we all come from this. And I contrasted scripture in Exodus with some of Messiah's words that speak about not being able to like be in Jerusalem and not being able to be a part of the feast if someone's not circumcised. So we read specifically the uncircumcised will not take part in like the Passover, the feast, any of them. But those that don't speak truth and don't give truth and don't have truth, they're never consistent with anything either. That's the punishment for teaching lies and living lies and in darkness, is they don't go by their own definitions and understanding, so-called. They don't go by their own standard and definition. If you continue it so often, you'll run into 1,000 contradictions, but then they never like to bring it up. So Messiah, they ate the lamb hastily, to eat the lamb, to come out of Egypt. That's when we come out of Egypt through belief. That's when you eat the lamb and get the hell out of Egypt and start running away from Egypt, which is this world, which is the lies of this world that always were and are, running away in our heart, in spirit, coming out of Egypt, learning to keep the commandments in the heart, first and foremost, the heavenly, above things, spiritual law. But they had manna come from above. They ate and they had a lamb and they ate and they got out of literal Egypt. But they died and they were dead still. That's the revelation. And Messiah says they ate that bread and they died. But now, look how offensive this is to those people back then that are still today. Whoever eats his flesh, drinks his blood, will have life and keep living forever and will not die. And anyone who believes in him, other scriptures and other places with Messiah's words, will not die. In contrast to eating that bread, which wasn't the true bread, and they are all dead. The understanding's not carnal. That's the problem with carnal man, is that it doesn't work. And the real life Messiah is talking about is not inside an unbelieving carnal man and his spirit, which gives life, which gives us life, and blood is life. So then eat the lamb, eat the blood, get the food, get the life, but this is the eternal life the life that he gives us, his spirit, belief in Messiah, eating or abiding in the vine, is to grow and stay alive. These spiritual things are all one, and they all work at the same time. Makes carnal man very angry, because we can talk like this all day long because it's the truth, and we know it and we believe it. And we'll speak as Messiah did, a bunch of lying contradictors in this world, and look very stupid. You know, how wise does Messiah look if we proclaim to the rooftops that whoever believes in Messiah will never die? In contrast to those that did eat bread and died and are dead, get ready for the world to make fun of everyone, to trash truth, because they don't understand. Their death is death. Their death is our death to them. Or their lack of understanding and belief in everything it's dumped on us. It's dumped on Messiah. It's dumped on his people. It has to be. So many walked away when he said somewhere else, we read, eat my flesh, drink my blood, and many walked away because they thought he was a sinner. They were offended. He's a lawbreaker. He's saying, drink my blood. And plus, he's a cannibal, teaching cannibalism. And so they literally walked away. This is what the carnal man does. He points the finger at something he doesn't believe and understand at all, and makes himself look good, righteous, by saying something is evil that's actually good, that he does not understand at all or believe at all. This is the work all over the earth with everything. This is how it works. That is the natural serpent mind. That's what it will do to make itself look good when it's threatened about something it doesn't know or care or believe in and have no life. So it attacks, which makes it look like it understands. It takes opportunity to attack. It's things that look bad because it's bad for its image, the only thing it lives for, carnal looking good image. But anyone in Messiah can't be caring about the image, but the inside, the internal, the inner, the spirit, the heart, the intentions and thoughts of the heart, and why things are done. And the inner parts are offered to the fire with sacrifice. Sacrifice, you consume something, it consumes itself, and it goes up to the Father with smoke. So then the feasts are an opportunity for believers to learn them, to keep them in the heart. But it's like we read with the letters, there's like a similarity in that you keep the days when he gives knowledge of them, but you keep it in spirit, not in the letter. You keep what it really means. The Father like blesses you extra heavy on those days. It's a special thing when it's done with in spirit and truth towards the Father, without any comparing to other people, without any self-righteousness, without any I'm better than someone or doing something to be better than someone. That's not what the feasts are. That's not what any of the commandments mean. When they're done right, then they're like a severe, heavy blessing. It's like you overflow the vats, you overflow the new wine, like coming up the rivers of life, water, life, like come out of your belly. Messiah taught truth. That's what it feels like too when this happens. It feels like life is coming from within your belly out. So whatever truth is, this world will mix it up. It'll take things that are partly true with letters carnally, that sound true and right, and then mix it all up. That's what confused me for a long time, until the Father started showing me that that's what the world does. Truth is the only truth. The world doesn't create anything. It just takes the truth and perverts it and twists it, mixes it, creates its own thing with it. So there's going to be religions, and it's all pride and self-righteousness and death running the show, that take some things that sound wise, sound true, that quote some scriptures for a game, for football, for golf, for religion, for this, for that, and use scripture like with abomination that has nothing to do with what it means and how to live it. You know, like he did this with grace. That's fine, someone says something, but it's sick when they say it while they think they're wise and righteous and set apart for saying it, as if that's the meaning in Scripture, grace. Somebody's good shot and the golf ball going in the hole, he hit it with grace. You know, it's crazy. And like so many thousands of other things that could be said that the world sort of uses like this. So then circumcision of the heart, you can enter the feast. Those scriptures are true. This is what we would say. The uncircumcised are not allowed in Jerusalem. It's an abomination to the Creator. We read only those that are circumcised. It wasn't a revelation for the Israelites back then that it was the circumcision of the heart to enter into real life, to get bread from heaven that gives us life within us and not just keeping us alive physically. That's like a living zombie, dead. You could be, zombies are alive. They're the living dead. That's what people are without Messiah in us and the Father in us. They're the living dead. They need life. And the end of a believer should be a brighter star shining strongest right at the end than any other time. It's like, what an amazing promise. No matter what tribulation or troubles come, anyone that keeps believing the Father will keep growing them, and they become more of a light, shining brighter and believing more. Even it right up to death. That's the faith we have to have. So then from this death to resurrection life, raised up on the last day, if someone's alive while they believe all the way to their death, they were alive, overcoming the fear of death. What death? We even read overcoming the fear of death and death itself. Messiah overcame death with like triumphant victory. Supposed to be alive inside, and his spirit giving us literal life, something like blood giving the body life, but the life from above giving us spiritual life, real life. Otherwise, it's a zombie that's physically alive but dead. That's a good picture. It's actually a very good picture of what mankind is without the Father Spirit. He's alive, but in contrast to the true life within, he's dead. Therefore, he's the living dead. We could be alive while we're alive. We're alive while we're alive. So then even when a believer dies, Messiah is not talking about this death when he says a believer that believes in him will never die, because a believer's death, a true believer, is my belief and faith is that the Father, they're the brightest and have the most life right at their death. It's like total victory over death. Like, what death? Kill me already so I can be resurrected to life, to the full life. That would be like a believer's end. An amazing hope, amazing thing. So what death when there's nothing but life consuming and killing the death? Or we're growing brighter and brighter. Like they say a star is the brightest right before it like shoots off. Yeah, that's why we read something about stars, because the Father's creation, the morning star that rises in our heart, his creation is telling the spiritual truth of his word that we need the meaning for. He needs to give us. The stars are the peoples, and there's many stars, and they're the peoples, the heavenly peoples, but then also this good gospel message is going to continue on in the ages to come. So I also see it as the many stars representing everyone eventually. But right now, the darkness doesn't know this. The world stars are on the earth, their crowns are like literal trophies for being rich and famous and full of pride and death. It's crazy. Every 5 minutes, every few seconds, someone's doing some prideful, wicked thing. Who wants to be in that slavery? Forget it. It's nothing but death and wrath, and to be envious, prideful, self-righteous, stingy, hateful, murderous, selfish. But that's like, the more someone is given sight to see, the more they will see that that's what humanity and self was. But all humanity that's not believing is You see it through the videos, through the sports, through the everything. You see why someone does something, and you see when they lie and why they lied, exactly why. Reading their mind, their spirit. That's what the Father gives us. That's what his spirit discerns. And they won't believe that, Messiah did this. He was given this discernment by the Father to see beforehand, before it even happened, what the Pharisees were going to do, for example, and what they were thinking and why they were doing what they were doing, and knowing the result of if he said something to knowing what they're going to say and responding before you even respond, because you know what they're going to say, why they say it, where they're coming from, and then knowing how the response will be after you answer them and getting ready for the second response or getting ready for zero response. This is spiritual discernment. Many times you have to be quiet and say nothing, lest the fool be wise in his own eyes. Or right after it, a contradiction with the letters, back to back, like the Father goes, right in your face, contradiction, take it. And it's like, I know it must be making the few believers in the world start smiling when they see it, because it's like amazing. His book, 66 books, is 99. It's death. The letters and the literal letters, the pages, which is literal letters, is 66. Man, the number of man, written by man, separating the spirit, the meaning, the inspiration from the Father, all from the Father, but now literal man with the literal hand literally writes the letters in a literal book. This is the carnal letters that kill. It's like a sign that the 66 books he gave me are the true, absolutely inspired by the Father, with no contradictions, with no perversions, with no monsters, beast, and mixing, and pagan things taught in there. And man is 6, and his book is 6:6, and man takes books. It doesn't even have to be his word, but especially his word with the harlot. Man plus the book, 6:6, just carnal, reading on, learning on his own understanding through pride and self-righteousness, is 666. And 666 is the same as the harlot, because we read Jerusalem as spiritually Sodom and Egypt. The heart of carnal Jerusalem, the natural man, is the same as any other nation. It's the same heart. Doesn't matter what it looks like on the outside. Put pink clothes on, put blue clothes on tomorrow. Doesn't prove anything. The heart's still the same, pumping inside the body. The same heart working the same, pumping blood, life. Strip the clothes and you have a naked person. It's the same nakedness. The nakedness is the same. Even if someone looks, looking a little different, it's the same nakedness, same body part, same everything, same sin, nakedness, same shame. Every once in a while, the Father will blind us just to show us that we need him, it's amazing. It's scary when it happens. I literally see something in my mind and I'm like, I know this is true. And then I do a double take, look a little later, a few minutes later, and what I saw was not true. Like literally, it literally happens. I saw a 7. I saw numbers add up to 7. I said it's 7. I check again, and I know that's like the Spirit just moving me to check again. And I'm like, uh-oh. I just said 5 plus 3 is 7. What on earth? And I was convinced fully, 100%. This is 7. 5 plus 3 is 7. That's not me being a retard or not knowing what 5 plus 3 is. It was a blinding for a second. I saw 7. What are you going to do when it happens? Jacob saw the wrong woman that he married or, got together with, worked for 7 years. Saw the wrong one. Doesn't matter what. The Father blinds someone, they're blind. Doesn't matter. 3. If the Father wants you to see 2 when in reality it's 3, this is what you will see, the delusion. And this is the reality, 3. And he's done it too many times, not just learning his word, learning things, constantly learning as proof that we were blind. but then like on the way getting blinded here and there. And he shows us. And it can be frustrating, but then like when we seek the Creator out on why these things happen and just ask about them and have patience, it gets better. And it's like you just accept what you are, the clay and not the potter. Just a little friendly reminder that you're the clay. Now, when someone's utterly blind, none of this applies. To a steaming, raging, carnal, hating creator man who hates our good Creator, he's never blind because he's constantly blind. That's the scary thing. It doesn't apply. When we start seeing, then we can start getting a contrast to what this blinding is and what delusion is. When someone's blind and hasn't seen anything, has not believed, they're blind about all things spiritual, all his word. They already think they know what something means and they don't. This is not pride. This is the truth. This is true for me. This is true for 7.9 billion people. It's interesting that it looks like we will have, well, I don't know, maybe the vaccines will start wiping people out before it hits 8 billion, but it's interesting. It's right around the number 8. 8 billion people, 8 people saved on Noah's day judgment. And now we're going to have 8 billion people. And look at the time we're in. 8, representing the new creation. The new creation is near. Death is sleep, according to his word and truth. Sleep, it's like nothing exists. You're unconscious. I've been unconscious before from not very long, but it was when I was 18. I believe it was 18, senior year. I got this fancy quad, a lot of power. Took it to the sand dunes in Oregon for the first time with the quad at the dunes with paddle tires. Never rode a bike with this much power, 450. And I'm like, wow, spin it around a little, get used to it. On the sand, out in the open, you could just blow it with the power, you know. I don't have it anymore, but nevertheless, I'm going, okay, now I'm going to wring this thing out and see what it's got. First gear, second gear, pretty quick. Third gear, a little longer. Fourth gear, really pulling. Fourth gear at the top of the RPM is pretty fast. It's like around 60, 55, 60 easy, because fifth gear, the last gear, top speed at like the top RPM would be around 70, in the low 70s probably, I think, is realistic. So I was probably going around 55, 60 easy. And I flew off one of the like razorbacks that I wasn't aware of because I'd never been there before. Not to that sand dune place, Florence. Only went to another place where it's like really flat, mostly flat. So I assumed, that's what happens when you assume, that it was similar to that. Couldn't see, excitement made it worse, blinded. Flew off like a 20-foot, 15-foot tall drop off. And the quad, that was the last thing I remember, is shifting and going like ready to shift to fifth. I don't remember anything else, but I must have landed so hard the bike didn't even roll, which is crazy, but I had a flag and it would have broke easily. It was just one of those cheapy flags that would have broke. But I hit I know because it was like a watermelon on the backside, lower back, hit it so hard and then whiplashed the head into the sand with the helmet, but I didn't even strap. Well, yes, I did. I think I had that strapped. And I woke up like face, like knees bent, face in the sand. I woke up and I woke up to a guy just staring at me. The only person that must have like seen something around me. And the first thing I like stuttered, is my bike okay? Like an idiot. He's just staring at me. Never said a word. So I'm like, okay, this is kind of freaky. And I got thrown let's see, I want to be realistic. My bike was on its fours, didn't look like it went flipped, no sand on it, no broken flag. And I was thrown forward in front of the bike a good, what's realistic, 20 feet, 25 feet, something like this. And I'm walking all the way back. And then it started swelling up and I got tired and like it was pretty bad. When I used my fingers like on my lower right side of the back, lower back, a little above like the tailbone. If I press it just right, I still feel a little bit of a sting to this day. But I don't know. I'm like I don't know if anything broke, but it's been fine for years. And when I blacked out, I don't remember anything. That's the truth. It was like being dead. It's what death must be like. There's no time. I could have been out for 1,000 years, and if you wake up, it's like the only thing you remember is right before you died. So then for those that believe in Messiah, that sleep in Messiah, like we also read, which is like likened to death, 1,000 years could go by and their next waking moment, because of the resurrection, because they were alive when they fell asleep, is life. From life to life. It's as if the death didn't even happen. That's the believer's hope. That's the resurrection. But what good is that resurrection if someone doesn't believe in Messiah and have life right now? They won't believe in this other thing. It's not going to be real, so it's all or nothing with the Father. They can talk about it. They can talk about natural, carnal things and Bible and religion, but it's not real to them. It's not actual belief and hope. It's belief in religion and self. It's scary. I'm keeping my eyes out, and there's more people openly, random people, unreligious people, that just throw out the name Jesus now, and they're praising and thanking God for their carnal blessings, sports, riches, super nice cars, doing a bunch of carnal things, nothing to do with belief in Messiah, but they're going around saying belief in Jesus Christ. I believe what the actual end holds is that Jesus Christ will be crowned. The anti-Messiah God-man will be crowned and will reign the world for a short time. The Savior to this world, the anti-Messiah spirit that started long ago. The devil can only reverse something once it exists, since he never creates anything. So once Messiah was born, and his death, resurrection, and power, and belief now in our Messiah, now there can be an anti-Messiah spirit. This is the spirit that this world's filling up with, specifically, so that they all worship Jesus Christ, anti-Messiah spirit, God-man, the blasphemy, the pride of man being God, the creator. But man being God in his mind is a blasphemy. He thinks he behaves and works out of his heart as if he's the creator. He doesn't submit to anything. He doesn't obey anything. He is his own ruler. The only way to be your own ruler is in delusion, death, and blind. Therefore, no one actually does this, because you have to be blind to have free will, to rule yourself, to think you're amazing and wonderful, and all the power comes from us. And the rulers and leaders of this world, the power they get that comes from them and all their hard work. You have to be in a delusion to have free will. The free will delusion. And it goes way deeper than just saying it for words with doctrine. As I've found many people's and seen the works and proof and blinding. The works proving the blinding and resistance of people that say they don't believe in this free will, and they do not believe or understand the words that they say. They actually work the same heart. They just talk about doctrine. That's it. It means nothing further. And it goes deep because of the Father's judgments because no work from the heart can be done without a judgment, period. A spiritual judgment at the very least for the spiritual works that come from the heart is done constantly. Constantly. Therefore, man cannot just do whatever he wants. There's a judgment for it, a blinding for it. So then if one path is death and blinding, how is that free if you're blind and dead? And wake up in judgment. Wake up and exposed as blind and dead and in delusion. That wasn't so free after all, I suppose. Those that are in Messiah are becoming free. Free from sin. Free in Messiah. Free to do good. Free to do good works of love. Not free to sin or freedom to break all his laws. Freedom from breaking his laws, as he gives us power, changes us, gets us to want to do the right thing spiritually. The lust, the pride and the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, the pride of life, the big three right there with Adam and Eve. Messiah's teaching, these three include and are attached to all sin that comes from the heart. Lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, pride of life. What can be named that isn't something to do with those three? It kills. It puts in slavery. It causes actual death within to do the actual sin. And the flesh just goes, please, 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 I want it, I want it, I want it. And it's sick. And this is what we need to be freed from, whatever sin is. Egypt and sin and bondage is slavery, ball and chain. This world, the Father's so perfect to start seeing the spiritual things, the heavenly things of what those scriptures mean, is everything in this world. It is the world perfectly. It wants you to be in slavery to their system, to sin, to darkness. They start you off and you work for people, work for somebody in the world, and they beat you. They don't care about you. You're just a number. You're a product. It's always been true from the beginning. You're just merchandise. You're a piece of shit nothing to anyone that hates the Creator. Then they make you build the bricks in the same amount of time. You have to do more work for Egypt and no increase in wages. That's the direction of darkness. It gets worse and worse. Mankind's so dark and in delusion that he wants to go back to Egypt once he starts coming out of it, starts complaining and wanting to go back to the lusts of the flesh, the pride of life, and lust of the eyes, and wants to eat the unclean food of Egypt, wants to ball and chain and make the bricks for Egypt. At least we have some kind of carnal guarantee for food. Isn't that what the carnal mind's going to do? No, forget the Father's way, forget his commandments, forget his laws, forget him providing a way. This job, my family, I want to go back to Egypt. It's doing exactly what we read. Everyone. They will all do the same thing with their heart perfectly. Although this does need to be seen to some degree on what it means to see with spiritual eyes and hear with spiritual ears. And you'll see that it's everyone's heart, same way, same thing. Because we're not looking at the clothes or what something looks like on the outside only. That's just a trick. It's only good on the outside if that matches the inside. Then it's good on the outside. There's nothing wrong. But it's mostly wrong because the natural man just covers himself and makes himself look good. And the inside has nothing to do with it, with the image that they create. So then reading Messiah's word, even, we can make a connection. that the bread from heaven is one and the same spiritually as eating Messiah. Makes that connection. Maybe I should read it here. Which verse is that? John, I don't remember, 4? The woman, this isn't it right now, but I might as well read this. Oh, this is about the woman in the well. Therefore, when the master knew that the Pharisees had heard that Yahushua made and baptized more disciples than John, more, through Yahushua himself, though Yahushua himself did not baptize but his disciples, he left Judea and departed again to Galilee, but he needed to go through Samaria. So he came to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near the plot of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Yeshua, therefore, being wearied from his journey, sat thus by the well. It was about the 6th hour. I had to let that sink in and see what it means with the 6th hour and ask. But a woman of Samaria came to draw water. The carnal man needs water. He's carnal. The 6th hour, he needs water to have life and go into 7, spiritual life. A woman of Samaria came to draw water. Yahushua said to her, "Give me a drink." What a prideful, self-righteous beast to just say, "Give me a drink." They would call that an a-hole to believers in this world, because they can't do what we ask ever. It's like speaking out of the Spirit and asking for something to the carnal man. It's a demand, it's authority, it's controlling them. Everything that's good, that's perfectly backwards from them, they are what they project onto good. They are controlling. They ask out of control constantly. They play the mind manipulation games and play secret tricks and games constantly. But just asking a genuine question out of the Spirit when we need to ask a question and say something like this, boom, instantly condemned by them. Can never ask a question and receive something straight from a devil. Always has to change something if it can. And a lot of experience, hundreds of times, I think I can confidently say on that specific thing. For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. Then the woman of Samaria said to him, "How is it that you, being a Jew, ask a drink from me, a Samaritan woman?" A Gentile, like considered a dog, the sinner. For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans. True, to this day. We don't have any dealings with unbelievers. Can't be one with darkness. Yahushua answered and said to her, "If you knew the gift of Elohim and who it is who says to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." She didn't know. The woman's Messiah's reply is out of knowing she didn't know. She didn't know anything. The woman said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw with." Now the woman's going to tell him as if he didn't say anything, because Messiah didn't say anything. Now she's going to say that he doesn't know. The woman said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where then do you get that living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as well as his sons and his livestock?" And she just doesn't know any better. That's the truth. And Messiah answered and said to her, "Whoever drinks of this water will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst. But the water that I shall give him will become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life." And it's interesting with that word everlasting, because it's this life, if we remain in him, keeps going. You can say everlasting, and the death that man dies is everlasting. The death to the carnal man, and what that death is, dies forever. Just an interesting take on the church world with that word eternal. We can use the word age lasting or age abiding with truth, and we can use the word eternal with truth. It doesn't matter when we have the understanding given from above. The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water that I may not thirst, nor come here to draw." So now she's asking, "Sir, give me this water that I may not thirst, nor come here to draw." So like she doesn't want to like thirst again. Like this is amazing to her, but she's only seeing it carnally. It's what the carnal man can only understand. The words Messiah says are the same words that people speak all day long. It's the only words we know to speak. The natural words that fit the spiritual understanding, they're the same words. Messiah said to her, "Go call your husband and come here." The woman answered and said, "I have no husband." This is interesting too, because did Messiah lie? Did he play games? Because now we read, Yahushua said to her, "You have said well, or have well said, I have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and the one whom you now have is not your husband, in that you spoke truly." Oh, this is very interesting. See, when the intention is right, it doesn't matter what it sounds like, but it must be true, spiritual, heavenly, lawful intentions from the heart. Messiah already knew she didn't have a husband according to the true way. Go call your husband and come here. Woman said, "I have no husband," but she's with a man, sleeping with the man. What else? And that's marriage, or that's a covenant. That's adultery to break that. We're not talking about the world's ways. We're talking about the truth, going back to Genesis like Messiah did. Except for fornication, this is adultery. And this consummates the marriage. At the very least, that's what this does, to sleep with the man or woman. Messiah said to her, "Go call your husband and come here." The woman said, "I have no husband." Now Messiah is answering. This has to be given to see. Messiah said to her, "You have well said, I have no husband." But she lied. Messiah knows she's lied. This is why we read the next words. "For you have had 5 husbands, and the one whom you now have is not your husband. In that you spoke truly." She played a game. Secretly in her mind, she's able to say, "I have no husband," because in her mind she said, "It's not technically my husband." So then it's a trickery, it's a lie. And that's why we read, "The one whom you now have is not your husband." What does that sound like? It just sounds like a girlfriend, boyfriend kind of thing, just messing around. I haven't really read, I'm doing this on the spot right now with these verses, so I'm just kind of waiting. "You have well said, I have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands. And the one whom you now have," which would be the 6th one, "is not your husband." The carnal man, not her husband. Carnal. It's not the true husband anyways, spiritually. In that you spoke truly. Messiah, it's likened to a wedding, a marriage, where married to another. So Messiah is like the husband of everyone. I mean the father, but through Messiah is seen like this, It's interesting that it's the 6th. It would be the 6th one is not your husband. She was with a man, but she said, I have no husband. Just trickery and carnal tricks. If she spoke truly, she would have said the truth, but she tried to hide it. She's hiding things. That's why she said, I have no husband. The woman said to him, Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, and you Jews say that in Jerusalem is the place where one ought to worship. So now literal location is being spoken of. On the mountain in Jerusalem is the place, location where one ought to worship. Yahushua said to her, Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you will neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem worship the Father. Do people forget that this is even in here? Messiah himself said the hour is coming when you will neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem worship the Father. How true is that? You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for the Father is seeking such to worship him. Elohim is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. It's not about the location. And Jerusalem got destroyed anyways in 70 AD. How true was this? It was already true, because Messiah and afterward. Not only is this true, there would be no actual place, literal Jerusalem. There would be no place. And there's more scriptures to support this and go along with this, but here's one place where Messiah's teaching says. And it's just interesting that, there's so many things that I know the church world's not aware of a lot. It's real bad, but it's a good reminder. There's so much Messiah taught that's in there. It's you're not even aware of it. Gabriel, greetings. Hello. Hope all is well. Or I guess more accurately, all is becoming well. Constantly becoming well. I feel like that would be more accurate for all of us. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father is seeking such to worship him. The woman said to him, I know that Messiah is coming, who is called, we read Christ here, Messiah, the Anointed. When he comes, he will tell us all things. It's just interesting to put yourself in this position, because the woman still didn't see, but it takes the Father's Spirit given to truly see what Messiah is saying, or anything in his word. Messiah said to her, I who speak to you am he. He told the truth. That wasn't prideful, but look how it looks though. Messiah, the King of the Jews, the Messiah, a pretty big deal. And he's saying, the woman's not seeing this yet, and he's like, I who speak to you am he. That's not prideful if it's true, and it's not being said out of pride. This is okay. This is good. This is the only perfect thing. It's funny because I've came across situations where it's in the world, face to face, or someone's really asking, are you a believer? Are you son of Elohim? Or son of God, they would say. And it's I know that's my belief in my heart. And you just answer out of a yes and truth, and it's not acceptable. By religious people, I've seen this, not acceptable. You could see their countenance fall. It was prideful to say you're a son, just like it was with Messiah, crazy. If we're not a son of the Father or daughter, but there's no male or female in the kingdom in this way. So we could say son and it includes everyone. We could say daughter and it includes everyone when we're speaking in spirit. And if we weren't truly not believers, not sons, not daughters, we'd be enemies, we'd be devils, snakes, and hypocrites still. We'd be in rebellion, we'd be in darkness. It's like I've seen this thing where it's like, get angry and like accuse things for just saying what you believe. They don't have to believe it, but why get angry at it's like a crazy thing because someone could go to church like for 30 years and then I've seen them get angry just for answering honestly. Like, they don't have to believe us, but they got angry at the only thing that could be true. That if you get angry at the only thing that could, what do they think they are then? What does that make them? If they hate being a son, hate being a believer. I don't know if there's such thing as a believer that's not a son. Where's the scripture that says you could be a believer and not a true believer and not a son or a daughter, to include everyone? But I always mean to include everyone when I say son. It's just easier, I guess, just to say one thing, but they go like hand in hand. So then, like when we read Messiah saying the bread from eat my flesh, drink my blood, and then he also says, he mentions the manna, the bread. He also says he's the bread. And the bread they ate, they died. But the bread that he's speaking of to eat, you will live continually if we do. So the bread is like one with eating the flesh and drinking the blood. And what this really means spiritually, a real way to do that, it's all one. It's all one in spirit. And it's all real. That's like why you try to like stress to unbelievers or like spiritual things to them are like non-existent, but that has to just be given, has to grow because it's the only real thing. When we read eternal life or everlasting life, this life is not physical life, like being born by the will of man, natural birth. This is the life that the Father gives, the Spirit, the life he gives us. It's not flesh, but it makes us alive in him. And when someone's really lifted up, I can only just say what I know to be true. It feels like it's coming out of your belly. It's like life coming out of but it's not just there. I mean, it's your whole being, but it feels like it's like the center. It's like like waters, like when we speak of like spiritual things, that's why the scriptures, water like shooting out of your belly. I mean, if we take that carnally, it's going to look kind of stupid, literally, if water shooting out of someone's stomach. But that's like what it is. That's how you have to speak. Life, water coming out of the rock, which pointed to, obviously, and we read Messiah, but the Father is the creator and he made all this be. But yes, that rock, when we read the letters, if it's not understood, it can kind of sound like he's speaking of Messiah being the creator of like the Old Testament or something. I just want to that's why I put some of these verses in here. This is everywhere in his word, that things that look something like something, where we need to get the understanding and clarity from the Father by asking. What we read in the verses that I just posted, Messiah's words, some of them, I think I put enough of them where you read it all, it does already contradict with the letters, but there's no contradiction. And then it's like spiritually in spirit, it's like to see this, it's like all one, just amazing. And it's not, and then timing and time dividers and these things really do help in our scriptural and our true. Timing and time is obviously important too. as the Father just does things like at the perfect time. So like that's one with the truth, time, and there's a time where before Messiah and time after Messiah. Before was looking forward to, and after looking back at what happened. Those before Messiah could not look back to anything. There's nothing to look back to, literally nothing. But they look forward to what was not there yet, something huge, not just Messiah, the man being born and existing, not just this, but all what it means is so great. Who he is, what it means to be his son, who he is, what happened, his resurrection, everything powerful. Something they couldn't comprehend, and it wasn't like their fault in that way. It just wasn't so. First the natural, the apostle says, then the spiritual. And now the spiritual things, the light. When the light comes, this is the highest, higher things. To do away with it or not have it is to only have the lower things, and then that's like someone's high things. Then it's no good. But when light comes, now the shadow, I mean, it's, goes away in this kind of way. The real thing is here, the light, the truth, his spirit, Messiah, the life, the light, the truth, the resurrection, spiritually and literally, as there's a last day resurrection, that Messiah also agreed with the Father's word, not just agreed, he's living the Father's word, teaching the truth, the Father's word. I will raise them up at the last day. That's our hope. Unbelievers just don't have that hope. They don't really believe that in their heart. So then it's like not dying now to believe in him. He gives us life, which is not to exclude all the other scriptures and difficult things and tribulation and all these other things, but someone that has life now, I mean, that they're alive, conquering death, and then their hope is resurrection. So then it's like no death, life to life. That's what I see and believe. I read from glory to glory. That's why the apostle's saying that. But when someone's alive in Messiah, there's not water coming out of your belly. There's not any proof to a blind person, So what they see, it's going to be often it's going to be enmity. It's going to be an enmity for getting close, for trying to get too close. And it's going to separate like magnets, or it's going to draw together if it's one spirit from the Father. And if it's not, if it's the Father's spirit versus something else, they won't become one. It's just a matter of time before the folly is poured out and the separation is made, like right in this life, at some point. Already starting now, the dividing between the wheat and the tares. Already working, the judgment already working this reality, where before Messiah, that scripture and truth is true, but it was more so like just naturally, with Jerusalem as the nation, the set apart nation that it's supposed to be and represents, and his people. And then all the other nations are the unbelieving nations, Gentiles, that are not from Abraham's literal seed. Therefore, they're Gentiles. But now that scripture is utterly true. It's more true than ever before, but it's anyone that's a believer in Messiah, in the Father. They're spiritual Jews, and anyone that's truly not of the Father's spirit, they're spiritual Gentiles. They're the nations, and it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's the same heart. But first the natural, first like the outward, the carnal, the natural only as the focus. This is such a massive thing, and I know it would be offensive for like so many people in the world in religion to hear that, but it's the truth. And then his word, it's amazing because every word is true. You know, I mean, it's like constantly living words to learn and live. Every word, as the Messiah said, your word is truth. So many simple teachings that Messiah has to just crush lies, but I mean, it's amazing what the world's done. Quoting from his word, teaching his word. That's all there was his word at this time, going back to the specific time of Messiah teaching the kingdom teaching. But sometimes we read some things that kind of make it sound like maybe it's threatening or attacking his word, and it's not doing that out of the heart. It's not doing this actual real thing. It only looks like it's doing that. By looking like it's doing that, when this thing is done, it's actually raising up his word as utter truth. But carnally, naturally, it has to look sometimes like it's attacking it, because it's attacking the man's lack of understanding, just the letters understanding, just the carnal things and lies and lack of understanding inside mankind. It's not his word that's false. It's for Pharisees, for example, and scribes, and these examples we have. They hated Messiah, but they were of Moses. They're of the law. They're of the Creator's word. They're very religious in this way, you know. But look who's his biggest enemy. Messiah's enemies, which will be our enemies too in spirit, and yes, it will. People in religion, because they were Messiah's enemies. They should be of the Father. They should be of, there's a lot of things they're saying, but especially those that say that the law still exists, like the Pharisees did, sitting in Moses' seat. And one thing the Father showed me not that long ago to really start seeing on why Messiah says, I don't condemn you. I think that's the word, or I don't judge you. It might be condemn, but you have one who will, Moses. This actually applies, today. But the meaning is for those that put themselves spiritually under the law, and what that means. As Moses represents something bigger than himself, it represents the law too. Moses, like the law also. And going under the law in this way, through, self-righteousness, only carnal, just leaning on self-understanding and letters that kill by itself. The law already condemns. You have to be literally perfect when someone goes on, that's why Messiah doesn't have to do anything. This is amazing. It's a little scary to be on that side, because wow, that's way off. That's to be way, way off. Messiah doesn't have to do anything. That you put yourself under Moses in this way, and what under the law means. He doesn't have to do anything. The law, it will do today what it did for the Israelites all that time, and never gave them the true life. What it did do is give them the natural understanding of the natural keeping of the commandments. That's the best way I can say it, I think, kind of something like that. So that this death reigned, the apostle says too, was another witness from this time all the way through Moses, all the way to that present time, all the way to now. This death still reigns. So what's going on? Because the law condemns, and condemnation is death. This is that spiritual death man is in. He needs life. And to be under the law in that way was death. So then the law is like the goal of the law is Messiah, or the end of the law, but that could be used corruptly too, to say that it's the end of all the law and it disappeared. Crazy. Messiah is teaching us how to keep the laws. What end of the law? There's nothing to teach now. Just be lawless, like Messiah said the world would be. lawlessness will abound. And it'll get worse and worse. I'll be talking about the true lawlessness of the heart. And if the heart's lawless, it doesn't matter what someone looks like. It's over already. If the higher thing is lawless, it's the heart. That's what's lawless. That's the real thing to the Father. Even if someone looks perfect on the outside, if their heart's lawless, that's what Messiah is teaching us. The Father's teaching us how to keep the laws. So then it obviously, when this is understood, then it didn't go away. It only went away in a sense. It went away in that through an explanation, through an understanding. It kind of looks like that. And it didn't go away for real. Under the law went away, married to another, dying to the law in this way, which sounds bad, sounds like, oh, dying to the law, now we're lawless. And married to another, like a man, like someone dies, and now you can, through the true way, marry another without sin, without adultery. So this death from belief is able to die to the law in this way, and to all of this, and able to marry to another, to Messiah, and be under Messiah instead of under the law, under his favor, which is not demanding perfection, cold, brutal perfection, do it yourself, condemnation. And so then under Messiah, that's why the apostle says there, for anyone under Messiah, and if anyone's under Messiah for real, then, for anyone under Messiah, there is therefore no more condemnation. There is no more of that same condemnation, but there is judgment still for sin. There's still a checking self all the time to make sure that this salvation's true. It doesn't take away all those truths, but there's no same condemnation for anyone under Messiah, in contrast to being under the law in that way. And Messiah fulfilled the law, therefore he's the example of what all believers do. He already said, I didn't come to destroy the law or the prophets, or I read in the Young's Literal, for example, throw down. And I like saying throw down sometimes, but he didn't do away or throw down the law. He came to fulfill it, fill it up, came to keep it the true way, which is specifically touching on the heart, the circumcision of the heart in spirit and not the letter like we read. The law is not evil. That should be like a given for a believer, a foundational thing. Like, if I do this, is it evil? Well, it could be if you're doing it the carnal way, with self-righteousness, without Messiah in us, without understanding. That's the scary part. Could be evil, or it could be very, very good, which has nothing to do with all that, but only wanting to do what's righteous, seeking the Father's righteousness, which is not having anything to do with self-righteousness or anybody else's righteousness, so-called, but seeking the Father's righteousness. Wanting to keep the law in the heart, and when the heart is really doing this, it starts becoming one. It's like heaven becomes one with the earth. Comes down in this way. And just because there's something true about that doesn't, the Father's shown me, it doesn't mean there's nothing true about that coming that's going to be fulfilled in a much greater way. But it's like already becoming first for a believer. It's like already becoming now. It's like first fruits. It's like the age to come is starting now. That's how it should be seen, of things to come. So then in a way, heaven on earth, already like starting, but not fulfilled, not filled up yet because it can't be, because we read of the things to come, and we read that it's like a down payment. His Spirit and everything he gives us is like a down payment, which is like a proof of the full payment to come, which means that the things to come have not come, but are like a down payment, maybe 1/10, and then the 9/10 are coming, or whatever number someone wants to use. In part, all things true in part is like how I see all the prophecy. Then there's specific, whatever that is, the fullness of times. The things to come is like in full, in part, and then before Messiah it was like natural only. The true real things didn't begin within self, within man. Then they began. So then there's going to be scriptures that sound like something's coming soon. The judgment's coming, because it is true. The Spirit was being poured out, and that was coming quick. And the judgment comes on a believer when we believe. That judgment comes, and the things must come quickly in Revelation to be fulfilled in us when we believe. There's not much time to fulfill his word. It's like quick, it's coming shortly. And yet, like, I see the whole age, even like the 1,000 years, 2,000 years, even this is still quick. I mean, it's like 2 days for the Father. These things are really, man doesn't live that long anyways. He doesn't live 2,000 years. So it's still quick. Even seeing it like that, to me, it's still coming quickly. These spiritual things and understandings just, they won't, when we read something, it won't make any sense until like some revelation is given on any of his word. And there's a lot that, I don't know how much I don't know. I literally don't know. I'd say a lot, a ton, just constantly learning. But like, if someone tries to tell someone that keeping the commandments is evil, I mean, that's obviously wrong. It's obviously evil. It's no good. They could be kept carnally only and not with the heart, which is incredibly important. But to say that the commandments are evil, no, none of them are evil. But, things, people use trickery or lack of understanding, there's deeper understandings that need to come, because it's like the Father will give the understanding, just so for anyone that has patience and waits and asks for whatever it is, he'll do it, so that we can see how it works, like the animal sacrifice. That's not to be confused with like the commandments. There's a difference. There's a rightly dividing, and then once the Father gives some kind of understanding, then you can see what we need to see. That's how it, like, doing anything without the Father, I mean, wasn't even meant to be. It's like, here's his book, now we need the Father, or else it's just letters. It was meant to be the Father being the giver, the teacher through Messiah, life, personal knowledge, personal knowledge of the Father, of Messiah, and he fills it up of what's like lacking. That's what Messiah did, filled up those letters and lived them, and now he became everyone's enemy. It's like astonishing thing, crazy what happened. This is such power and authority from the Father above. Because everyone that thought they were righteous, now the time's coming, children, like, this is how I see it. That's how, like, it's time to grow up. None of this only looking good. Like, in short, it's so much bigger than that. But now Messiah is what those laws actually mean. And look at all of the hate that's coming his way, because he's doing actual, real righteousness from the heart. Everything. Perfect example. And he did keep the Sabbath. He did keep the commandments. But he filled it up, the things that were. This is how crazy it is that someone can keep the Sabbath, or someone can keep the Sabbath and one person could be another's enemy. That's how crazy it is. This is going to cause like a lot of confusion. Well, we'll see confusion in the world. But like when he gives us, it's not confusing, but you could see the possibilities of confusion, a lot of it. I mean, it's sad, but it's true. Can't deny it. And the people all over his word, especially Acts, makes this clear. But Messiah's life made it clear, more than clear, that those that were supposedly keeping the law claimed that Messiah's people were breakers of the law and doing it away, and came to change the customs in this bad way, to do away with it. That's why he told them, I didn't come to destroy the law. They didn't believe it or understand it. He already told them that. It's because they hate the Father. That's the revelation. Man is the enemy of the Father, the Creator. And they're hating what they see because they see Messiah, and Messiah has the Father, and he's doing the Father's will, and they're hating it, And he taught that it's not us. It's they hate the Father first. And me, he said, like, this is the order, but it's not about like us first. That's not what's happening. But when we read like one little verse where we read that, where he says that, you read like one verse and it kind of makes it sound like, which verse is that? Where he says, they don't hate you, but they hate me. They hate the Father first. If you take that all by itself, it kind of makes it sound like no one's going to hate you. That's not what he's saying. I mean, we have to like always get the understanding from the Father, but also be aware of everything else he said, like where it's coming from. What is he bringing out right there? One specific thing he's bringing out. And so often you have to sound like that to bring out a spiritual truth. You have to sound contradicting to somebody. But he's not actually contradicting, because his heart is not intending what the carnal man will accuse he's doing. His heart's not doing that. He's saying, he's to bring it out that it's not about us. They don't hate you. They hate the Father first. It's not about us. But then we can read another verse somewhere else that kind of fills it in a little bit. And we read that they hate me, they'll hate you. Now it sounds like Messiah is a giant contradicting teacher and liar, doesn't it? If we take the whole of it, is he teaching they hate us or don't hate us? Is he teaching this or that? So that's the revelation we have to be given constantly about everything, all of it. Or else it'll be a stumbling block to trip over, and then we have to lie. Then we have to hide whichever way we choose, left or right, about this or that. Hide the thing we don't like. If you choose left, you hide right. If you choose right, you hide the left thing. And hide a bunch of things, which is continual lying to self. And if someone's like teaching, leaders of the church world, they're lying to many people. And they get blinded in their lives. And it's very easy to get blinded. All you have to do is sin with the heart. So then it'll sound like perfection's put on someone. It can sound like that. And yet that's not the truth at all. The Father doesn't do this. Messiah is not doing this. And, under his favor is like planned through time. And the Father knows the time perfectly for each individual. It's working out through time, not excusing sin. It's just that it's a fine line. It's a narrow way, not excusing sin, and yet still needing to go forward and learn, but not backwards either, and not excusing sin. That's why the apostle's saying so many of these things, because of what the truth is. Should I sin now to increase this favor and good things? It's what's going to look like to someone if they're not hearing and seeing. He says, by no means. No, that's no good. That's evil. You don't play games like that and do this evil thing. Because something's so good to man, it's like he has to do evil. And I'm just use it, do a lot of evil to turn into good. It doesn't work like that. He won't do that. The Father won't do that. Messiah. He said we were not under the law anymore, that Messiah changed all that. I knew that was wrong. Yeah, and like with you can't argue, like you could speak to people, it's like, but if they're in the church world, I mean, they won't hear the words. It's the truth. You say, we will say like, no, the law's not gone. It did not disappear, but then they'll assume something. What comes into their mind is not what we said, not what I said, not what someone else said, if they're understanding and seeing this. The law didn't go away, and yet we're still not under the law. They don't see how that could be true all at once. That's like how that's how like everything is with all his word. I'm finding it's like a narrow splitting down right the middle. And if we don't get the understanding, we'll end up with some carnal thing to the left or right, and it'll suck us down and take us down. Lies will breed more lies, and then, the corruption starts growing, the leaven starts growing inside someone. And that's why it's very bad to get, to like get some new leaven inside. It's got to like be coming out, or else it will grow. It's what we read. And if it wasn't important, we wouldn't have a law about this, about purging out the leaven for 7 days. This puts someone's mind very specifically about this specific thing, and 7 is like the complete perfect thing. So false doctrine is leaven, wickedness is leaven, malice is leaven, lies are leaven, but especially false doctrine, though. It gets inside and it grows. Corruption. And the apostle brought this thing up to like simple, purge out the old leaven. We read, he said. Or else it's going to be like a lumped loaf of bread. It'll bake with heat. A little yeast leavens the whole lump, and it'll keep growing. The kingdom's growing in us, or that yeast and bread for corruption is growing until it's lumped, or growing in the kingdom within the Father and his Spirit, and all things are growing in us until it's complete, whatever that end is it needs to be, or the corruption's growing, and everybody is on these two paths, one of these two. It's growing corruption or growing towards the Father or away from him. I know that's a big thing to see in reality, that's what everyone already is. They're either going this direction or that direction. It's such a sovereign thing, power. There's like nobody standing right in the middle and just staying there forever. They'll be harder and harder of hearing, or it's getting better and better, hearing more and more. It's like hopeless with, well, I wouldn't say hopeless with anyone, but like just in general, what the church world's done, the leaders of it, it's like you can't, they're like rocks. It's like talking to a rock. But if the Father moves someone to speak to someone, then that's what they do, because maybe they need to hear specifically. I wouldn't know like what the Father's telling someone else to do. But that's why they create these like just religious things, fixed rules, and these fixed things destroy how the Father works in us. If we do those fixed things, whatever it is, it won't be doing the Father's will, because the wind blows left or right or forward or back, here or there. Sometimes not very much. Sometimes it blows harder, moves more, sometimes not. That's like for each individual to know. How could someone, some God man, say, here's the fixed thing and here's what you do always? I don't recall the wind of doing that. It's always moving and changing. The creation is teaching that that's wrong itself. And someone that goes with the wind, with the Father, they know where they come from and where they go, because they trust where the wind blows, where the Spirit blows. is going to be in the right direction, even without seeing what's ahead, because that's what faith is. If all things look horrible, as the Father loves to do throughout someone's life, big things like that here and there, that's what it is. It's a roadblock, doesn't matter. And just, if we believe, it'll be boom, a way made. And you have to wait. I don't know what that would be for someone else for any specific thing, but he makes you wait sometimes right before you faint, right before you give up. Keep waiting, and a way will be made for whatever it is. Doesn't matter what it is, whatever it is. That's the miracle. It's like they never believe this at all. This is the real faith, that there's nothing the Father can't do. And then he'll show these amazing things for those that believe in him. And they get bigger. He'll show it more. Then it makes someone believe more, and it grows stronger. Then you're able to do more, which makes you grow more, which makes you stronger, and you keep going. And then death is dying, not all at once. Like one day, boom, what death is just, oh, it's gone. But it's like constantly dying. It's being overcome. The Father already knows man's thoughts and all the anxieties and fears and corruptions and doubt, every little splinter and little tiny thought and terrors and everything. I mean, these are all like the good things we read to come out of, to start getting destroyed. That's the hope. It's hard to believe sometimes there is like a good thing that's good when it's so bad sometimes, and there's or bad things just coming from this world. It's like hard to believe it's even, it's not to say not believing. I'm just contrasting like where we come from. It's like sometimes it's mind blowing. I think that's all I had for this one. Thanks for the comments. And Gord. I guess it's in the description. I ended up reading something else, which is fine. Any of his word is good at this point. Disciples came and they marveled that he talked with a woman. Yet no one said, "What do you seek?" or "Why are you talking with her?" Well, I'll just stop there. With the last verse, I'll just read. He said to them, "I have food to eat of which you do not know." So now, this is what we need to eat to know. Because first, it's not knowing, and hopefully, it's already knowing for believers, but it's like getting better. We know what it is better. And then, one more maybe. That therefore the disciples said to one another, "Has anyone brought him anything to eat?" They weren't understanding. They thought he was talking about like fish, like just like literal food, and this is something way greater that the Father gives us. It's not to say that literal food is garbage now. It's just in contrast, it won't do anything concerning life and the age abiding eternal life within us that he gives. In contrast, it pales in every way. And yet we still do need food. That's why we read, he knows the things we need. He knows that. Seek the kingdom of heaven. Don't worry about the lower things. All right, peace, take care, seek truth, and blessings from above.